Hi, I'm your Auntie Elaine, and I'm here to lecture at you a bit. I'm sorry, it's just the way it's going to be. Today, I'm here to ask a question. At what point did the United States, which many people would claim is a Christian nation, decide that protecting the most vulnerable amongst our society was not a Christian priority? Beginning of the pandemic, there was this attitude that a lot of people had where people were like, it's not much worse than the flu. It doesn't matter if I get it because it's only killing the elderly and the people with pre-existing conditions. And the troubling implication of that logic is that the people who are elderly and have pre-existing conditions are not valuable enough to care about. That's what that boils down to. That protecting the vulnerable populations, people who are disabled, are sick, are elderly, that wasn't a motivation at all for a lot of people at that time, or since then, quite frankly. People still like to talk about the coronavirus as being something that, that person died, but they had a pre-existing condition, or blah, blah, blah. Going through the pandemic as a person who I would describe myself as a kind person, and has a lot of sympathy for the plight of others, that alone would have been extremely difficult. But I wasn't just going through it in that context. I was also going through it in the context of a cancer survivor. In September 2018, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. I did not have a doctor at that time. I was 36 years old, and like many 36-year-olds, I had been, kind of reluctant to go to the doctor, think I could spend my money on better things than this. I wasn't, and I'm not ever going to be married, don't have kids, so, it wasn't one of those, like, you get into the habit of going to appointments because you got children or spouses or whatever. I didn't have a relationship with doctors because I was, for the most part, relatively healthy. I like to go hiking and take my dog to the beach and, all the things that you do down here in Florida when it's not too hot to get out of the house. And I, in the course of a year, lost about 100 pounds. I don't know exactly. And was so dangerously anemic that I had to get 3 blood transfusions when I was finally admitted to the hospital from the emergency room because I was so sick that I finally broke down and decided I couldn't live like that anymore. And it turned out I was literally right about that. If I hadn't gotten treatment, then it's quite possible that I could have died. So, I understand what it's like to suddenly be in the hospital with a potentially life-threatening illness and what it does to your family and how awful that could be. So that's where I was coming into the pandemic, and it just beat me down emotionally to see people be so cavalier about people like me, my life. I was somebody with multiple pre-existing conditions. I'm obese. I'm a cancer survivor, particularly blood cancer. See, there's quite a link between bad outcomes with COVID and blood cancer, even people who are blood cancer survivors. So I was the people they were talking about when they're like, oh, it only kills. I was one of those people, almost like you hear about, like with the AIDS pandemic, and it was, the government wasn't very motivated to act because it was killing the right kind of people. And this wasn't that, but it almost felt like as long as the disease was only killing the right kind of people, that there were people who were okay with that. And it's still kind of like that. And living that experience was extremely emotionally draining on me. And I think that kind of dovetails into where we are now. For the last year of my life has been completely taken over by a as yet undiagnosable chronic illness. I'm in pain every moment of my life. Right now, I'm in horrible pain. It sucks. I have to pick my battles when I come out here and take the time to give these little internet lectures. It takes a lot out of me physically. I can only do this for so long, and I'll have to physically recover for a while afterwards. Just the way my life works. Even just coming out to my own back porch and talking at my cell phone camera for 10-20 minutes is a hardship for me. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. I can't work. My nephew was born just about a year ago. I've seen him once. He was 3 weeks old, and I have not seen him since that trip up. He's walking. He's going to start talking, and he doesn't know me as a physical entity. He knows me as a video person who talks to him on a video screen. I'm as real to him as the people that he watches on YouTube. My goddaughters are up north, and I haven't seen them in all this time, and I miss them terribly. And of course, my niece, she's learning to talk. It's a little different with her because she can communicate. And so the video chats are a little more meaningful to her, I think. But still, she doesn't know me, I'm missing very important, precious time with them. And with my cousin's kids, they're like an hour away, and I've been able to see them maybe like once a month, and it's so hard not having a life. And 5 years ago, I was perfectly normal. I was not this person. I wasn't someone whose entire life had been taken away by first a health condition that's so scary that the very word of it, sometimes people prefer to call it things like the big C. Can't even say cancer because it's so scary. And then now I'm fighting this unnamed monster, and I didn't know any of this was going to happen. In 5 years, I've completely lost the life that I used to live. And I have very little faith that I will get it back. And I have to figure out how to cope with that. As a 40-year-old woman who is a repulsed aromantic woman in a society that expects everyone to be pair bonded, and because I'm not, when I eventually lose my job because I can't work, then I'm going to have to figure out insurance without any support. I mean, my parents are great. They have been so supportive, and because of them, at least I don't think I have to worry about housing. I don't think I'll end up homeless on the street. I don't think they'd allow that. But it could if I didn't have support. That could be what I was facing. I have gone from somebody who was very financially comfortable with a nice job. I had a Disney World annual pass, and I went to Disney World just whenever the hell I felt like it. I just hop in the car, drive down there. I went from having a perfectly acceptable, normal, suburban life for the most part, normal as I'm ever going to be, to abject poverty in 5 years. So I just want to ask why it is that my country has stopped prioritizing, and I'm not talking about the government. The government does what it does, but our country has abandoned assistance for our other men, our neighbors. We've abandoned service in favor of personal liberties, is what they like to call it. I don't know how it's personal liberties when people who are vulnerable are excluded from the discussion. What about our liberty? What about our rights? This last summer, I spent every day sobbing, just uncontrollably sobbing, because I was so terrified to lose my job and my insurance. And I had such poor medical care because I didn't have a good doctor when all this started that really cared about me. I was in the middle of switching doctors when the pandemic hit, and I put it off because I thought it's not necessary. I'll worry about that once things have calmed down, and it's never calmed down. And so I came into this fight of my life. And I remind you, I had cancer, and this is worse than that. This is worse. This is the defining health crisis of my life, and I'm a cancer survivor. And yet, I have not had any real help from my society. I haven't had any real sympathy from my society. If I didn't have to worry about losing my insurance last summer, I probably wouldn't have been crying hysterically every day. If I hadn't had to worry about losing my job when I could barely eat, I was losing weight so fast, and I couldn't keep food down. I couldn't do anything. I still can't do anything. And yet, I'm supposed to navigate this system without anyone to advocate for me. If I have anyone to advocate for me, it's just my own dumb luck. Because it would just be so easy for someone like me to fall through the cracks. It is so easy for people like me to fall through the cracks. It happens every day. And I don't understand when the majority of people in my country decided that that was okay. That our friends and our neighbors and our family could be so close to the edge of poverty at all times that it wouldn't take very much to knock them down. And if they get knocked down, who knows what's going to happen. All of this is just, it's very frustrating because I know that people are good. I believe in the goodness of people. And I believe that most people, if there was somebody in front of them in need, their instinct would be to help. But for some reason, we've got this weird mob mentality where if there's a person who's standing there begging for assistance and a group of, some self-described Christian types over here, you can't be at all certain that the person who needs assistance won't be mocked, won't be shamed, won't be attacked for whatever has made them vulnerable. And I'm not just talking about health, I'm talking about things like the parents of the children who were murdered at Sandy Hook. Think about that. The most horrible thing in their lives, the thing that has made them so vulnerable, has been used against them in such malicious ways to make money, to make clout, to spread influence for power. We have, as a society, we've had enough people embrace the idea that personal possession of resources, power, of clout, trumps anything else. And it doesn't matter who you knock down when you push your way forward. And I don't understand that, because I don't believe that that's Christ-like. I don't believe that that's something that the church has taught. I believe that people have been charitable and kind in the past. I mean, we have wonderful institutions that are supported by charity. So why is it that you'll have people who donate to St. Jude's, but they won't, support free school lunches for children? I don't understand it. And so that's why I have to ask the question. This is one of those times where I don't know the answer. I'm making this argument, like doing this lecture, in the hopes that maybe somehow it will start making sense to me. But it doesn't. As a kind person, I don't know when it was that kindness became synonymous with weakness. Why is it that kindness, feminine quality, is so degraded, so devalued? When did we stop being kind? that's all your Auntie Elaine has to ask about today. Not really a lecture, I guess, so much as a string of questions. Maybe I'll bring little Casey. Cake? Cake? Oh, there's maybe Casey there. Come here, Cake. Where's Cake? Come here, Boba. Come here, Boba. Oh. Little cakers. Little caker potato. Little tater. Is that my tater? Oh, he's a good boy. Oh. Sweetheart. Love you all. Take care.